Imagine this. You're just a regular guy, having one beer after work, when suddenly your Ice Queen CO grabs your wrist in a crowded bar and whispers 7 words that change your life forever. Take me home, or you're fired. What would you do? Keep watching, because this true story gets wilder than you think. I still remember her voice cutting through the noise at Murphy's bar that Friday night. Take me home, or lose your job. My name is Lucas Bennett, and I'm 27 years old. I work at Sterling Creative, one of the biggest advertising agencies in New York. Most days, I'm just another guy in a button-down shirt, answering emails and hoping my ideas get noticed. Nothing exciting, nothing dangerous. Until Victoria Hayes, my boss, the woman who made Vice President stutter, grabbed my wrist near the pool table and said those 7 words that flipped my world upside down. I was holding a beer, halfway through a conversation with my roommate Jake about basketball scores. The bar was packed, loud music thumping, people laughing and shouting over each other. Jake had dragged me out because I'd been working late every night that week. I needed to relax, he'd said. Just one drink. Then Victoria appeared out of nowhere, her fingers tight around my arm, her eyes wild with something I'd never seen before. Fear. Real, raw fear. Don't look behind me, she whispered, leaning close enough that I could smell her perfume. Vanilla mixed with something I couldn't name. Just stay next to me. Pretend we're together. My brain stopped working. This was Victoria Hayes. The woman who ran client meetings like a general commanding troops. The woman who never smiled in the office, who wore suits that cost more than my rent, who everyone whispered about but nobody really knew. And now she was pressed against my side in a crowded bar, trembling. What's going on? I managed to ask. My ex is here, she said, her voice cracking just a little. Please, just help me. I glanced past her shoulder, trying to be subtle. Near the bar, a tall man with slicked back hair stood with his arm around a blonde woman who couldn't have been older than 25. He was laughing, loud and confident, the kind of laugh that said he'd won something. The blonde giggled and touched his chest. He kissed her forehead. That's when I understood. This wasn't about work. This wasn't about power. Victoria Hayes, the woman everyone thought was made of steel, was heartbroken. Okay, I said quietly. I can do that. Her shoulders dropped just a little, relief washing over her face. Thank you. I put my arm around her, loose at first, then tighter when I felt her lean into me. Jake stared at us with his mouth open, his beer halfway to his lips. I gave him a look that said, I'll explain later. And he nodded slowly, backing away into the crowd. Victoria and I moved toward the exit, walking past her ex like we belonged together. I called her babe, kept my voice easy and relaxed. She laughed at something I said, a fake laugh at first, but then something softer. Her ex glanced our way. His smile faltered just for a second, but I saw it. Victoria's grip on my hand tightened. When we stepped outside, the cool night air hit us both. The street was quieter, just a few people walking past, a taxi honking somewhere down the block. Victoria let go of my hand and stepped back, running her fingers through her hair. I'm sorry, she said, not meeting my eyes. That was completely inappropriate. It's fine, I told her. Are you okay? She laughed, but it sounded broken. No, but I will be. A black cab pulled up to the curb, like she texted for it while we were still inside. She opened the door, then paused and looked back at me. Her face was different now, softer somehow, like she'd taken off a mask she'd been wearing for years. Forget this happened, Lucas, she said quietly. I'll see you Monday. Then she was gone, the cab disappearing into the river of red tail lights flowing down the street. I stood there on the sidewalk, my heart pounding, my mind racing. Jake came outside a minute later, still holding his beer. Dude, he said, what just happened? I have no idea, I admitted. But that was a lie. Because standing there, watching her cab vanish into the night, I knew exactly what had happened. Something had shifted, something I couldn't take back. For just a few minutes, I'd held Victoria Hayes close enough to feel her heartbeat. And even though I knew it was all pretend, even though I knew Monday morning she'd walk past my desk like I didn't exist, part of me didn't want to let go. Jake kept talking, asking questions I barely heard. I finished my beer and told him I needed to get home. The subway ride back to my apartment felt longer than usual. I kept replaying the moment she'd grabbed my wrist, the desperation in her voice, the way she'd relaxed when I played along. I'd worked at Sterling Creative for 2 years. In all that time, I'd maybe spoken to Victoria directly 5 times. She was 3 levels above me, untouchable. And now I knew what her perfume smelled like. I knew how her hand felt in mine. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering what Monday would bring. Would she ignore me? Would she thank me? Would she pretend it never happened? I didn't know. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Something risky, and alive, and completely out of my control. Monday morning, Victoria walked past my desk at exactly 8:15, like she did every day. She didn't slow down, didn't look my way, just strode toward her office in her charcoal suit, and heels that clicked against the floor like a countdown timer. I tried to focus on the campaign mock-ups on my screen, but my mind kept drifting back to Friday night. By lunch, I convinced myself it really was over. Just a weird moment we'd both forget. Then my phone buzzed at 2:30. A text from an unknown number. My office. 10 minutes. My stomach dropped. I knew that number now. I'd seen it Friday when she texted her cab. I grabbed my notebook like I needed it for cover and headed to the elevators. The ride up to the executive floor felt like it took an hour. When I knocked on her door, she called for me to come in without looking up from her computer. "Close the door, Lucas." I did. Her office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, and the faint scent of her vanilla perfume still hanging in the air. She finally turned toward me, her expression unreadable. "About Friday night," she started. "I owe you an explanation." "You don't," I said quickly. "It's fine." She smiled, just barely. "It's not fine. I put you in an uncomfortable position." She stood up and walked toward the window, her back to me. "My ex-fiancé, Richard, he left me 6 months ago for his assistant. I've been avoiding places I thought he might be, but apparently I was wrong." "I'm sorry," I said, not knowing what else to say. "Don't be," she replied. "You helped me keep my dignity. Most people wouldn't have done that. Here's the thing," she continued. "The annual client appreciation dinner is in 2 weeks. It's the biggest event of the year, investors, major clients, the whole board. They've been on me about bringing someone, about seeming more approachable." I felt my pulse quicken. "Are you asking me to go with you?" She turned around. "Yes. As my date. Not a real date, obviously. Just for appearances. One night you smile, shake some hands, make small talk, then it's over. And if I say no?" I asked, testing her. Her eyes met mine. "Then you say no. I'm not threatening your job, Lucas. Despite what I said Friday, I wouldn't do that. But I'm asking for your help." I should have thought about it longer, should have considered what it might mean, how complicated it could get. But I didn't. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." Relief crossed her face. "Thank you. My assistant will reach out about details." The next 2 weeks became a blur I didn't expect. Victoria's assistant, a sharp woman named Diane, scheduled a fitting for a suit I could never afford on my salary. Victoria insisted the company would cover it. Then there were the casual coffee meetings where Victoria coached me on who would be at the dinner, what to say, how to act. She was different during those meetings, less guarded. She'd laugh at my jokes, actually laugh, not the polite corporate chuckle I'd heard in presentations. She told me about growing up in Boston, about her mom who'd worked 3 jobs to put her through college, about how she'd built Sterling Creative's digital department from nothing. One afternoon we were walking back from a coffee shop near the office. It was raining lightly, and she didn't have an umbrella. I held mine over both of us and she moved closer to stay dry. That's when I noticed she hummed when she walked, quietly under her breath, some old jazz song I didn't recognize. It was such a small thing, but it made her seem human in a way I'd never seen before. The night of the dinner arrived faster than I expected. I met Victoria at the restaurant, a place in Midtown with chandeliers and waiters in bow ties. Then I saw her coming down the stairs and everything else disappeared. She wore a sapphire blue dress that caught the light, her hair swept back, her smile nervous but real. Every person in that room turned to look. "Don't stare," she whispered when she reached me. "You'll make it obvious." "Too late," I said without thinking. She laughed, a genuine sound that made my chest tight. Her hand slipped through my arm and we walked into the dining room together. Cameras flashed. People approached us, shaking hands, making conversation. Victoria introduced me as her partner, and I played the role perfectly. But somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, something shifted. Her hand found mine under the table, our fingers laced together, and neither of us pulled away. "You're good at this," she murmured during a lull in conversation. "So are you," I replied. But we both knew we weren't acting anymore. When the dinner ended and the crowd thinned, I walked her outside. The street was quieter now, just the hum of distant traffic and the glow of street lights. Her car was waiting, but she didn't move toward it. "Tonight was..." She paused. "Easier than I thought it would be." "Yeah," I agreed. "It was." She looked up at me and for a moment the whole city seemed to hold its breath. "Remember when I told you to forget about Friday night?" I nodded. "Forget I said that." Then she kissed me. It wasn't long or dramatic, just a soft press of her lips against mine, quick and warm and real. Before I could react, before I could say anything, she stepped back and slipped into her car. The door closed and she was gone, tail lights fading into the traffic. I stood there on the sidewalk, my heart hammering, my mind racing. Everything had just shifted again. This wasn't pretend anymore. This wasn't just a favor for my boss. Something real had started, something neither of us could control. And I had no idea what came next. I couldn't stop thinking about that kiss. All weekend I kept checking my phone, hoping she'd text me something, anything. But nothing came. Monday morning felt weird walking into the office. I kept my head down, focused on my computer screen, pretended to work on campaign ideas that meant nothing to me anymore. Victoria walked past my desk twice that morning. The first time she didn't even look at me. The second time our eyes met for just a second before she looked away. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe properly. Around lunchtime my phone buzzed. "Meet me at Riverside Cafe at 1. Come alone." I practically ran out of the building. The cafe sat by the water, away from our usual office crowd. When I arrived she was already there, sitting in a corner booth wearing sunglasses even though we were inside. I slid into the seat across from her. She pulled off her sunglasses and I could see she hadn't slept much either. "We need to talk about what happened," she said quietly. I nodded, waiting. "That kiss was real, Lucas. Too real. And that's the problem." "What do you mean?" I asked, even though part of me already knew. She looked out the window at the boats passing by. "I worked 12 years to get where I am. 12 years of proving myself, of being tougher than everyone else, of never showing weakness. And now people are starting to notice us." Her voice cracked just a little. "If this gets out, if people find out their CEO is dating someone on her own team, they'll say I gave you special treatment. They'll say you slept your way up. They'll destroy both of us." "But I haven't gotten any special treatment," I protested. "You think that matters?" she said, leaning forward. "Perception is everything in our world. The truth doesn't matter if the story is better." We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said something I hadn't planned. "So what do you want to do? Walk away? Pretend nothing happened?" She bit her lip and I could see her fighting with herself. "I don't know if I can walk away from you, but I don't know how to make this work either." Before I could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. "It's Richard," she whispered. Richard was the chief operating officer, basically her second in command. She answered, putting it on speaker. "Victoria, we have a problem." His voice came through, tense and serious. "Someone sent an anonymous email to the board. There are photos of you and Lucas Bennett at the client dinner. Together. Very together." My stomach dropped. "The email suggests there's a romantic relationship," Richard continued. "The board wants to meet tomorrow morning. They're calling it a conduct review." Victoria's hand shook as she ended the call. She looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked truly scared. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she whispered. "Who would do this?" I asked. She closed her eyes. "Derek. It has to be Derek. He's been trying to get my position for 2 years. This is his perfect weapon." We left the cafe separately, like criminals trying not to be seen together. That night I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything but pace my tiny apartment. My phone rang around midnight. It was Victoria. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "For what? For getting you into this mess? For kissing you? For wanting something I knew I couldn't have? Don't apologize for that," I told her. "I'm not sorry it happened. You should be," she said softly. "Because tomorrow I'm going to have to choose between my career and you. And I think we both know which one I'll choose." The line went dead. I sat on my couch staring at my phone, feeling like the world was collapsing. She was right. She'd built her entire life around her career. She'd sacrificed relationships, friendships, everything for that corner office. How could I compete with that? But the worst part was, I understood. I understood why she had to protect what she'd worked so hard for. The next morning I showed up to work even though every instinct told me to stay home. People stared at me in the elevator. Whispers followed me down the hallway. At 9 o'clock my phone buzzed with a message from HR. "Please report to conference room A immediately." My heart pounded as I walked down the hallway. Through the glass walls I could see Victoria already sitting there, along with 3 board members and someone from legal. I sat down at the far end of the table, as far from her as possible. She didn't look at me once. The head of HR, a woman named Margaret with sharp eyes and sharper questions, opened a folder. "Mr. Bennett, we've received information suggesting you and Ms. Hayes have engaged in a romantic relationship. Is this true?" I looked at Victoria. Her face was blank, professional, like she was in any other business meeting, like I was just another problem to solve. I opened my mouth, ready to deny everything, ready to protect her the way she'd once protected me. But before I could speak, Victoria did something I never expected. "Yes," she said clearly. "It's true." The room went completely silent. Everyone stared at Victoria like she just admitted to a crime. Margaret recovered first, clicking her pen nervously. "Miss Hayes, you understand this is a serious violation of company policy." Victoria sat up straighter, and I recognized that look. It was the same one she used right before destroying someone in a negotiation. "Is it?" she asked, her voice sharp and controlled. "Please show me where in our employee handbook it states that 2 consenting adults cannot have a relationship." "Well, there's a matter of power dynamics," Margaret began. "Lucas doesn't report directly to me," Victoria interrupted. "He reports to the marketing director, who reports to the CMO, who reports to me. That's 3 levels of separation." She pulled out her own folder, and I realized she'd come prepared. "I've reviewed every relationship disclosure in this company's history. When Robert Chun from finance dated Sarah Williams from sales, nothing happened. When Thomas Parr from operations dated Jennifer Cruz from HR, they simply signed a disclosure form. The only difference here is that I'm the CEO." Margaret's face reddened. "The board is concerned about perception." "Perception," Victoria repeated, and I heard anger creeping into her voice. "Let me tell you what I perceive. I perceive that in 15 years with this company I've increased revenue by 300%. I perceive that I've landed our 5 biggest clients. I perceive that I work 70-hour weeks and haven't taken a real vacation in 4 years. And I perceive that the moment I show interest in someone, suddenly my judgment is questioned. One of the board members, an older man named Harrison, cleared his throat. Victoria, no one is questioning your contributions. We simply need to ensure there's no conflict of interest. Then let me make this simple, Victoria said, standing up. Lucas had nothing to do with this decision, but I'm resigning, effective immediately. No, I said, the word bursting out before I could stop it. Everyone turned to look at me. Victoria's eyes widened. Lucas, don't, she warned. I stood up too, my legs shaking but my voice steady. She's right about everything. She's the best CEO this company has ever had, and you all know it. You're not concerned about policy or ethics. You're concerned that she's human, that she wanted something for herself instead of giving everything to this company. And if you can't see how wrong that is, then I don't want to work here either. I quit. Victoria looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Lucas, sit down, she hissed. But I was already walking toward the door. I stopped and turned back. You taught me something, Victoria. You taught me that sometimes the safe choice isn't the right choice. Maybe it's time you learned that too. I left the building that day not knowing what would happen next. I cleared out my desk while people watched and whispered. I took the subway home in the middle of the afternoon, feeling completely lost. 3 days passed. I applied to other jobs, called former colleagues, tried to figure out what came next. My savings would last maybe 2 months. Then my phone rang with an unknown number. Mr. Bennett, this is Patricia Chun from the board. I held my breath. The board met yesterday for an emergency session. Ms. Hayes convinced us that our policies regarding workplace relationships were outdated and potentially discriminatory. Oh, I said, not sure where this was going. She's agreed to stay on as CEO under the condition that we modernize our policies. We've agreed. Furthermore, we'd like to offer you your position back, with a promotion to Senior Marketing Coordinator and a transfer to a different reporting structure to avoid any conflicts. I almost dropped the phone. We made mistakes in how we handled this, Patricia continued. Miss Hayes helped us see that. She's quite persuasive when she wants to be. I laughed despite everything. Yes, she is. That Friday evening I went back to the bar where this all started. I needed to think, to process everything that had happened. I was halfway through my first beer when someone slid onto the stool next to mine. Thought I might find you here, Victoria said. She wasn't wearing her usual business clothes, just jeans and a soft sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. You fought for me, I said. You fought for us, she corrected. Then she smiled, really smiled, in a way I'd never seen before. Turns out I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of choosing work over life. Tired of pretending I don't care about things that matter. You matter, Lucas. What happens now? I asked. She reached for my hand, her fingers warm and sure. Now we do this for real. No pretending. No hiding. No more choosing between what I want and what I think I should want. Someone took a picture of us at the bar that night. This time neither of us cared. The photo ended up on a few gossip sites with headlines about the CEO who chose love over image. Victoria framed it and put it on her desk at work. When people asked her about it, she'd smile and say it reminded her that the best decisions are usually the scariest ones. 6 months later, we're still figuring it out. Some days are hard. People still gossip, still question, still judge. But we show up anyway, together, building something real in a world that often values image over truth. Because sometimes you have to risk everything comfortable to find something true. And sometimes the person who seems impossible turns out to be exactly what you needed all along.